Welcome back to the library, everyone. Today, our tale takes us into the depths of World of Warcraft's history. We're going to uncover the secrets of Silverpine Forest. In the northern reaches of the Eastern Kingdoms lies the Silverpine Forest, an expansive and ancient woodland that stretches along Lordaeron's western coastline. The terrain varies from relatively flat to gently rolling hills nestled amidst towering mountain ranges. To the south lies the kingdom of Gilneas, while the hill-spread foothills border it to the southeast and Tirisfal Glades to the north. Silverpine's eastern edge is defined by the tranquil waters of Lordaeron Lake. Within the whispers of its trees lie tales of the Forsaken, Scourge invasions, and the fearsome Worgen. It is these very narratives that we shall explore in this tale. The history of Silverpine Forest traces back to a time when tribal humans, high elves, and Amani trolls fiercely contested control over the lands of Lordaeron. Nearly 2,800 years before the events of the Dark Portal, the high elves of Quel'Thalas found themselves locked in perpetual conflict with the dominating Amani trolls. These moss-skinned trolls, known for their ability to regenerate limbs and heal injuries, were a savage and malevolent race. With their empire sprawling across northern Lordaeron, the trolls fiercely defended their borders against any perceived threats, fueling the elves' animosity towards them. Meanwhile, the scattered human tribes of Lordaeron waged internal battles for supremacy over their respective lands. Amidst this chaos, the Arathi tribe recognized the growing menace posed by the trolls and sought to unify the disparate human tribes against this common enemy. Through 6 long years of cunning strategy and military prowess, the Arathi gradually subjugated rival tribes, offering peace and equality to the conquered in exchange for their loyalty. The culmination of their efforts was the establishment of Strom, a mighty fortress city in southern Lordaeron and the capital of the newly formed Arathor nation. As Arathor flourished, humans from across the continent sought refuge within the city of Strom, swelling its ranks and strengthening its defences. Rumours of the struggles that the elves were being subject to reached Strom, prompting Thoradin, the leader of the Arathor, to realise the true extent of the troll threat. Desperate for aid, elven ambassadors arrived seeking military assistance against the troll armies. Despite his distrust of magic, Thoradin agreed to help, allowing elven sorcerers to teach select humans the basics of their magic. With newfound magical abilities, the united forces of humans and elves confronted the troll warbands at the foot of the Alterac Mountains. In a fierce battle that lasted for days, the combined might of Arathor and elven magic decimated the troll armies, securing victory for the Alliance. In the aftermath, the elves pledged loyalty to Arathor, and peace between humans and elves endured for generations. With the troll threat vanquished, the elves focused on rebuilding their kingdom of Quel'Thalas, while Arathor expanded its influence beyond the gates of Strom. During this era, humans established settlements in Alterac, Tirisfal Glades, Gilneas, Kultiras, and notably Dalaran. Dalaran, the second Arathorian city-state, arose in the northern lands beyond Strom. As aspiring wizards sought greater autonomy for their magical pursuits, they migrated from Strom to Dalaran. It was here they contributed to the construction of Dalaran's enchanted spires and enthusiastically delved into their arcane studies. The citizens of Dalaran supported their endeavours, fostering a thriving economy under the protection of these magic-wielding defenders. However, as the number of mages increased, the very fabric of reality around Dalaran began to fray and weaken. The heedless spellcasting of Dalaran's mages inadvertently attracted the attention of sinister agents from the Burning Legion, who had been previously banished following the collapse of the Well of Eternity. While these demons were not numerous, their sporadic appearances caused significant disruption and turmoil within Dalaran. Despite efforts by the ruling mages to conceal these occurrences, encounters with demons became increasingly frequent. A demon named Kathra'natir, belonging to the Nathrezim, made his presence known approximately 2,610 years prior to the First War by infiltrating the city of Dalaran. Within its walls he unleashed plagues and diseases while wielding the ancient Nathrezim blade called Apocalypse. Using this weapon, he manipulated the minds of non-mage civilians, turning them against the city's rulers. Additionally, he seized the Amulet of Waters from the Council, enabling him to exert control and corrupt Lordaeron Lake. Having achieved his sinister objectives, Kathra'natir fled Dalaran to spread chaos throughout the kingdom of Arathor, including the region of Silverpine Forest. Upon its borders, he unleashed a devastating plague of locusts, decimating the trees and laying waste to all the cropland. The Council of Tirisfal, an amalgamation of the ancient elven society known as the Council of Silvermoon and the most formidable mages of Dalaran, embarked on a mission to track down demons that had already breached Azeroth's realm and to thwart any further incursions. Led by Merrill Winterstorm, the council set its sights on confronting the demon, Kathra'natir. However, their efforts were stopped as the demon proved too powerful, resulting in the death of a council member. Kathra'natir's reign of terror over the Silverpine Forest and its surrounding environment was brought to an end when he was banished by Aladai, the first guardian of Tirisfal. In the wake of his banishment, the Sword Apocalypse was left behind. The southern regions of the Silverpine Forest, including Pyrewood Village and Ambermill, were originally part of the Kingdom of Gilneas until they became isolated. Fast forwarding through millennia, after the Silverpine Forest lay in ruins following the devastation wrought by the Burning Legion demons, and in the aftermath of the opening and subsequent closure of the Dark Portal, in modern history, the orcs left behind found themselves imprisoned. While some humans advocated for their immediate execution, King Menethil II of Lordaeron chose mercy and established internment camps for them across the lands. Meanwhile, within his own kingdom, King Greymane of Gilneas grew increasingly discontented with the allocation of Gilnean resources to the maintenance of orc internment camps and the construction of Netherguard Keep. In discussion with his advisor Godfrey, Greymane questioned the wisdom of following his advisor's advice in aligning with the Alliance, arguing that it had only resulted in the loss of Gilnean lives. Expressing his intention to withdraw from the Alliance and fortify Gilneas against external threats, Greymane and his advisor, Godfrey, considered a plan to build a wall through Lord Crowley's lands, effectively cutting off Pyrewood Village and Ambermill from the rest of the kingdom. With Crowley's lands naturally bordered by mountains, the wall could be seamlessly integrated. Greymane, confident in his decision, believed Lord Crowley would support his motives. Subsequently, the Kingdom of Quel'Thalas withdrew from the Alliance, citing human leadership failures that led to the destruction of their forests during the war. This, coupled with the financial burdens of rebuilding Stormwind and the release of orcs from the internment camps by Thrall, tensions within the remaining Alliance factions escalated. The crumbling of the Alliance of Lordaeron prompted the Kingdom of Gilneas to sever all military ties with the Alliance. Determined to shield his kingdom from future threats, Greymane initiated the construction of his protective wall, effectively sealing the kingdom off from the Silverpine Forest and the lands beyond. As Gilneas constructed the Greymane Wall to seclude themselves from the rest of the realm, other ominous forces were gathering strength. The being known as the Lich King had emerged some years earlier, born from the mortal shell of Ner'zhul, an elder shaman and chieftain of the orcish Shadowmoon clan who had been ensnared by the malevolent demon lord known as Kil'jaeden. Transformed into the spectral Lich King, Ner'zhul's essence was encased in the mystical ice of the Frozen Throne atop the ice-crowned glacier in the distant Northrend. From this icy fortress he began amassing an army of undead, giving rise to the Undead Scourge, with the singular objective of weakening the world in anticipation of an invasion by the Burning Legion. Unlike the orcish horde's previous attempts at conquest over Azeroth, this new army was immune to the internal strife that had stopped forces before. Now unchallenged in his icy domain, the Lich King unleashed the devastating plague of undeath, spreading it southward into human lands. As the plague swept through the human territories, more and more countless humans succumbed to Ner'zhul's mental domination and life-draining afflictions. With the aid of Kel'Thuzad and the Cult of the Damned, the plague spread rapidly, contaminating numerous villages in Lordaeron's northern regions. Those infected with the plague perished and rose again as obedient servants of the Lich King. These events unfolding in the northern reaches of the Eastern Kingdoms would later be remembered as the Scourging of Lordaeron. While the full tale of the Scourge is a narrative for another occasion, relative to today's narrative is the reality that this Scourge army would eventually spread far and wide, reaching the lands of Silverpine Forest. Invading the woods, the Scourge swiftly advanced through the forest, only to be met by the imposing barrier of the now complete Greymane Wall. Despite their initial progress, the Scourge found themselves halted by the formidable defences of the wall. Undeterred, they launched relentless assaults upon the gates in a bid to breach the secluded city beyond. Though their numbers were modest at first, the Scourge forces steadily grew over time, showing no signs of fatigue or retreat. Fearing an imminent breach, King Gen Greymane took the drastic step of opening the gates, allowing Gilnean soldiers to pour forth into the Silverpine Forest. Yet, tragically, the Scourge proved too formidable. overcoming the valiant efforts of the Gilnean soldiers and conscripting them into their ranks of undeath. After the Scourge decimated Gilnean's defenders, King Greymane resorted to increasingly drastic measures to safeguard his city. Our exploration of the Silverpine Forest now takes a compelling twist as we delve into the story of Archmage Arugal. Once a revered patriot of Gilneas and a distinguished royal Archmage, Arugal later became affiliated with the Kirin Tor of Dalaran. He often resided at Valgan's Field in the northern reaches of the Silverpine Forest. Following the devastation wrought by the Scourge upon Dalaran and its inhabitants, Arugal returned to his native Gilneas. As the Scourge threatened the Greymane Wall, King Greymane sought Arugal's expertise in safeguarding the kingdom. Recalling tales of a mysterious wolf-like race, Arugal proposed enlisting their aid, despite cautioning the king about their formidable prowess. The king agreed, and essentially Gilneas had called upon the Worgen. The Worgen are large wolf-like humanoids primarily dwelling in the forests of Azeroth. Contracting the Worgen curse occurs through bites, or consuming the blood of a Worgen, which results in the transformation of humans and night elves into these creatures. Following transformation, individuals are overwhelmed by rage and guilt and gradually lose their former selves, succumbing to the madness. However, through medication, magic and self-discipline, Worgen can control their emotions and resist their feral instincts. Some willingly embrace their new existence. Neither holy man nor beast, they form tribal societies called packs, examples spread across Azeroth being the Bloodfang, Nightbane and the Blood Moon. The origins of these creatures trace back thousands of years, precisely 9,300 years. In the ancient records of Kalimdor's past, amidst a fierce conflict between night elves and demonic satyrs, a group of druids pursued a potent but unpredictable druid form that embodied the wrath of the wolf ancient Goldrin. Led by R'hllor Fangfire, these druids of the pack aimed to harness and control the wild fury inherent in this chosen form. They willingly subjected themselves to the energies of the Scythe of Elune, a mystical relic forged from Goldrin's fang and the Staff of Elune. However, instead of tempering their rage, the artifact transformed R'hllor and his followers into the Worgen, primal beings driven by instinct. Consumed by relentless anger, R'hllor's druids rampaged through friend and foe alike during the battle with the satyrs. Night elves wounded by these savage attacks were afflicted with the curse and turned into Worgens themselves. In a desperate attempt to halt the curse's spread, Archdruid Malfurion Stormrage reluctantly banished the Worgen beneath Darrelnir in the Emerald Dream, where they would slumber peacefully for eternity, or so he thought. Tasked with defending Gilneas from the attacking Scourge, Arugal turned to the research of a mage named Eerie. The mage had delved into the mysteries of shadow magic and other worldly beings before perishing during the siege of Dalaran. Archmage Arugal shared his discoveries with Greymane, revealing the existence of formidable creatures with unnatural strength and ferocity. Sensing that they lay dormant but yearned for liberation, he proposed to unleash them with Gen's approval. However, Arugal harboured doubts about their uncontrollable nature, fearing they might defy command. With the Gilnean forces suffering heavy losses below, options were scarce. Reluctantly, the king consented, stipulating that Arugal summon one for inspection. And then, with permission granted, Arugal called forth more, including Alpha Prime, the name given to R'hllor Fangfire when he was transformed into the very first Worgen. They put the Worgen against the Scourge beyond the wall, and as the battle raged outside, Arugal commenced his summoning ritual. Opening a rift to the Emerald Dream, he beckoned the Worgen into Silverpine Forest. Swiftly, the Wolfmen unleashed their wrath upon the Scourge, exceeding even Arugal's expectations in power and ferocity. Although they successfully vanquished the Scourge, as Arugal expected, the Worgen proved to be uncontrollable and began unleashing their feral fury upon the Gilnean soldiers. As a result, King Greymane commanded the withdrawal of his troops from the Silverpine Forest and the permanent sealing of the Greymane Wall's gates. Yet, during the retreat, some returning soldiers were afflicted and succumbed to the Worgen's curse, essentially introducing the affliction into the now sealed off Kingdom of Gilneas. The loyalists of Gilneas believed that peace had somewhat been restored to the realm. However, the notion of a secure, self-sustaining kingdom, protected and isolated from the world, couldn't have been more misguided. Over time, accounts of peculiar assaults and vanishings multiplied across the city. The Worgen curse was starting to spread through the kingdom of Gilneas, eroding the kingdom's humanity, an account deserving of its own tale. Subsequently, Worgen that remained outside of the walls of the kingdom besieged a keep within Silverpine Forest. The fortress overlooked the humble hamlet of Pyrewood Village, and the infiltration of the Worgen plunged it into darkness and decay. This keep had once been an integral part of Gilneas, serving as the residence of the lords of Pyrewood Village under the authority of Lord Darius Crowley's lineage. Baron Silverlane presided over the castle, while his loyal forces were led by Commander Springvale, a valiant paladin of the Silver Hand. In the wake of Arugal's Worgen rampage through Silverpine, the keep fell under siege, resulting in the demise of Baron Silverlane and his family. Consumed by despair and guilt for these events, Arugal embraced the Worgen as his progeny and sought refuge within the walls of the keep, christening it Shadowfang Keep, and it became entwined with Worgen and the spirit of the fallen Baron and his household. It was here that Alpha Prime and Arugal formed the Wolf Cult, with the aim of recovering the lost side of Elune. This cult sought out humans who volunteered to embrace the Worgen curse, and swiftly the curse proliferated among the human populace of Silverpine, morphing regular individuals into savage, untamed beasts. Arugal became a pivotal figure in the Wolf Cult, orchestrating the conversion of Silverpine's populace into the Worgen, many of the citizens being cursed to take on the Worgen form whenever the sun set over the forests. Those who rallied under Alpha Prime formed the Bloodfang Pack, while those under Arugal's command formed the Shadowfang Pack, and others afflicted with the curse, transforming solely under the cover of night, comprised the Moonrage Pack. Shielded by his loyal Worgen minions and the spectral guardians of the keep, Arugal set out on a new mission to ensnare most of the forest's inhabitants with the curse, and some of the notable locations that succumbed to the Worgen transformation were Pyrewood Village and the Deep Ellum Mine. We'll revisit the dramatic accounts of Shadowfang Keep later within this narrative. Before the onset of the Third War, Ambermill held little significance in the Silverpine Forest, primarily serving as a hub for lumber harvesting. However, in the aftermath of the Scourge and the Burning Legion's devastation across the Northern Territories, the rebuilding mages of Dalaran began strategizing the town's potential utility. Positioned atop a dormant ley line energy node, Ambermill became a focal point for the Kirin Tor's efforts to reactivate it for a large-scale project. While the mages of Dalaran were occupied with rebuilding their shattered city, and the citizens of Gilneas had been sealed behind the Greymane Wall, there was no one left to tend to the needs of the forest. The Scourge had ravaged the crops, setting them ablaze, while the plague of undeath began to afflict the trees, draining them of life and leaving them diseased. Amidst the scattered remnants of Alliance resistance throughout Lordaeron, the largest concentration had gathered within the Silverpine Forest post the Third War. This group, known as the Remnants of the Alliance, was under the leadership of Grand Marshal Othmar Garithos. During this time, the Scourge had effectively transformed Lordaeron and Quel'Thalos into desolate plague lands. As we mentioned, only a few pockets of Alliance resistance remained. One such faction comprised of High Elves, who all rallied under the banner of the last of the Sunstrider lineage, Prince Kael'thas. A skilled mage in his own right, Kael'thas grew disillusioned with the weakening Alliance. The High Elves mourned the loss of their homeland and adopted the name Blood Elves to honour their fallen kin. Despite their efforts to repel the Scourge, they suffered greatly from the absence of the Sunwell, which had once fueled their magic. Now let's delve into the story of Illidan Stormrage, because it is relevant to the Silverpine Forest. Originally, Illidan was a formidable Night Elf sorcerer who made a controversial decision during the War of the Ancients by siding with the demonic Burning Legion. Despite his betrayal, some argue that his intentions were honourable, as he sought to repel the Legion's invasion from within. Afterward, he returned to the Night Elf ranks, but his creation of a second Well of Eternity led to his people branding him the Betrayer and banishing him beneath Mount Hyjal for over 10,000 years. During the Third War, when the Legion once again threatened Azeroth, Tyrande Whisperwind freed Illidan to aid in the battle against the demons. In a desperate move, Illidan absorbed the fell energies of the Skull of Gul'dan, transforming him into a demon to vanquish the Dreadlord Tichondrius. However, this action again led to his banishment by his brother Malfurion. Illidan was reported to have fled across the Great Sea. Following the Legion's defeat, Illidan once again siding with the demonic Burning Legion by agreeing to eliminate Kil'jaeden's traitorous creation, the Lich King, and Illidan was doing so to gain insight into his true adversary, the Burning Legion. Upon arriving on Lordaeron's shores, Illidan swiftly travelled through the Silverpine Forest to reach Dalaran, where he commenced using the Eye of Sargeras to rupture the Frozen Throne and obliterate Icecrown. In pursuit of Illidan, Tyrande, Malfurion, and Maiev Shadowsong voyaged across the Great Sea to locate him. Upon reaching an unfamiliar land, Malfurion recognized it as the desolate territory of Lordaeron, devastated by the Scourge's passage. Feeling compelled to commune with the land spirits, Malfurion departed, leaving Tyrande and Maiev alone. He urged them to resolve their differences while he attended to his spiritual connection. As they commenced their search for Illidan, they encountered a band of Alliance Blood Elves, led by Prince Kael'thas. The elves were besieged by the Scourge and preparing to evacuate across the nearby River Arvas, a river in the Silverpine Forest running past Pyrewood Village. Despite Maiev's objections, Tyrande insisted on aiding them, citing the Alliance's support during the conflict with the Burning Legion. Together, Tyrande and Maiev repelled the Scourge's assault and escorted the Blood Elves to safety. However, their journey was interrupted by an ambush at Pyrewood Village. Tyrande directed the Blood Elves to cross the river while she held off the attackers. Dismissing Maiev's skepticism, Tyrande remained resolute in her faith in Elune's protection. As the undead advanced, Tyrande invoked the power of the stars to decimate her adversaries. Yet, just as victory seemed within reach, the bridge beneath her collapsed, sweeping Tyrande downstream into enemy territory. Maiev then ordered her new Blood Elf allies to help continue her hunt for Illidan Stormrage, rather than to go after and save Tyrande. Malfurion and Maiev would later reunite after discovering Illidan's utilization of the Eye of Sargeras in an attempt to shatter the Frozen Throne. His spell was stopped by Maiev and Malfurion, who perceived Illidan as a threat to the world. Ensnared by his brother, Illidan rebuked Malfurion, labeling him a fool for obstructing his attempt to eliminate the Lich King. It was here where Maiev informed Malfurion that Tyrande had been killed by the Scourge. Heartbroken over Tyrande's supposed demise, Illidan received unexpected news from Prince Kael'thas, suggesting that Tyrande may still be alive. Disputing Maiev's account, Kael'thas revealed that Tyrande had not been torn apart by the undead, but instead swept away by the river's currents, and informed Malfurion that the Blood Elves had been ordered to pursue the Demon Hunter over saving the High Priestess. In response, Malfurion detained Maiev and immediately set out to locate Tyrande. Illidan pleaded for the opportunity to aid his brother in locating Tyrande. Accompanied by his loyal Naga, he located Tyrande amidst a fierce undead onslaught. Together they fought through the undead until they reached her, and she was surprised by Illidan's assistance, and when he safely delivered her to Malfurion, she was even more surprised. Malfurion then granted Illidan freedom, under the condition that he would never pose a threat to the Night Elves ever again. Seeking reconciliation with his brother, Illidan agreed. Upon his release, he opened a portal to Outland using a residual rift from Kel'Thuzad's summoning of Archimonde. Fleeing hastily, he was then pursued by Maiev, who could not come to terms with his redemption, and the following tale that unfolds leads us into the lore of Outland and the Burning Crusade, a story for another time. Seeking a solution to their people's addiction to magic, Kael'thas made a controversial decision. He embraced his highborn heritage and allied with Illidan Stormrage and his Naga, hoping to find an alternative power source. This move earned condemnation from the remaining Alliance leaders, who branded the Blood Elves as traitors and severed ties with them permanently. During the same era, a faction of undead, exhibiting greater intelligence and self-awareness than their counterparts, splintered from the Scourge and established their own group known as the Forsaken. Following the Scourge's devastating rampage across Lordaeron and the obliteration of the Kingdom of Lordaeron by Arthas Menethil in the Third War, these undead Forsaken claimed dominion over much of the ravaged territory. Their primary stronghold emerged within the Undercity, situated in the royal catacombs beneath the ruins of Lordaeron's capital city in Tirisfal Glades. Swiftly asserting their authority over these lands, the Forsaken expanded their influence into the Silverpine Forest in their pursuit of control. Recognizing the impossibility of attaining complete dominion over all territories, the Forsaken forged an alliance, excuse the pun, with the Horde to bolster their power. The Forsaken established a camp along the western shoreline of the area, originally serving as a mere burial ground along the Silverpine Crossroad. The Sepulchre underwent a significant transformation following the conclusion of the Third War. The resourceful Forsaken repurposed the ancient crypt into their primary stronghold within the region. Surrounded by threats including the Worgen to the south, the Scourge to the east, and the Kirin Tor forces to the southeast, it stood as one of the few havens for the Horde adventurers in the entire region. Returning to the tales of the mages in Ambermill, their plans to reactivate the dormant leyline energy node was stopped by the Forsaken, who feared losing control over Silverpine Forest if the node was reactivated. Upon capturing one of their prisoners, the Deathstalkers discovered that the Kirin Tor mages at Ambermill had stored crucial documents concerning Dalaran's current status. Menik Karkad enlisted the help of an adventurous rogue to acquire these documents. For Alliance adventurers journeying to the Terrisful Glades and beyond, Ambermill provided a secure refuge. The Forsaken were keen to uncover the reason behind the Kirin Tor's occupation of the town and were equally determined to obliterate it. Now that we've delved into the lore of the humans, the Worgen, the Night Elves, and even the Forsaken in the Silverpine Forest, there's one intriguing aspect of Silverpine's history we've yet to explore. And it all unfolds on Fenris Isle, amidst the waters of Lordaeron Lake. It's here that a young mage from Dalaran, Thruel Ravenclaw, decided to set his dark plans of domination into motion. Thruel, along with his two friends, Bethor Ishard and Gunther Arcanus, had once crafted a magic wand, a symbol of their friendship, by merging their apprentice wands together. However, their friendship shattered when Thruel willingly surrendered his soul to the Lich King. Despite his disdain for the wand, Thruel couldn't bear to part with it or allow others to possess it. Consequently, he stole the wand and concealed it within Fenris Keep. Additionally, he betrayed his chief servant and bodyguard, Alaric, offering his head to the Gnolls. This peculiar alliance with the Gnolls extended further as Thruel assumed leadership of the Rothhide Gnolls, a faction of Gnolls afflicted by the Lich King's plague. He devised the embalming ichor to resurrect these plagued Gnolls into the undead Gnolls that infested Fenris Isle. Additionally, he concocted the Rothhide ichor to empower these undead Gnolls, enabling them to carry out their master's commands. Predominantly, the Rothhide Gnolls were dedicated to scavenging corpses for the Scourge. Thruel orchestrated the Rothhide Gnolls' raids against the Forsaken and any adversaries of their master. They aggressively assaulted anyone who approached Fenris Keep in Lordaeron Lake. The island often drew attention of horde adventurers, who were sent there in an attempt to uncover the truth behind the events of Fenris Isle. After a period of time, Pyrewood Village fell entirely under the grip of the Worgen curse, transforming its inhabitants into savage beasts by night. During daylight hours, they resumed their human forms, offering provisions to Alliance travellers, albeit with a palpable air of hostility emanating from Shadowfang Keep. Governed by the Pyrewood Council, all of whom were servants of Arugal, the village was effectively under the Archmage's control while he attended to matters at Shadowfang Keep. The Forsaken, expanding their influence across the northern eastern kingdoms, grew increasingly wary of Pyrewood Village's activities, particularly following the disappearance of one of their apothecaries, Apothecary Barad. Deathstalker Fairlayer suspected that without the Pyrewood Council's guidance, the sons of Arugal would revolt against their master. Upon learning that Arugal himself had transformed Barad into a Worgen, the Forsaken orchestrated the Council's demise. Slain by horde adventurers, the Council's defeat left Pyrewood Village in ruins, paving the way for the Forsaken to seize control. With the Council eliminated, the focus shifted to Arugal himself, the mastermind behind all of these events. In a monumental battle, horde adventurers stormed the keep in a bid to eradicate the monstrous threat. Ultimately, Arugal met his demise, his head severed by agents of the horde. And subsequently, with Shadowfang Keep now pretty much empty and still in ruins, the Crown Chemical Company, an independent undead and goblin organisation, became the sole occupants of the keep, utilising it as a base of operations for their nefarious schemes in the ensuing years. Following the demise of Archmage Arugal and his Worgen forces within Shadowfang Keep, the Forsaken's plans for full domination of the forest were set into motion. And as the Forsaken took control of the region with very little resistance, the forests of Silverpine fell into a period of relative quietude. However, as the chilly Silverpine breeze rustled through the trees, the events unfolding beyond the imposing Greymane Wall grew increasingly intense. The Worgen curse was spreading. As a result of the events surrounding the Battle of the Wrathgate in Northrend, the Forsaken found themselves at odds with both the rest of the Horde and its leadership. With Warchief Garrosh Hellscream now in control of the Horde, he tasked Sylvanas Windrunner with seizing Gilneas to establish a southern Lordaeron port for the Horde. The Forsaken initiated a direct assault on the Greymane Wall, yet despite their bold efforts and daring attacks, the combined strength of the Gilnean troops defending it and the wall's formidable defences easily repelled them. While the Gilnean defences remained strong, signs of deterioration began to manifest along the Greymane Wall. We're not going to delve into the lore behind the invasion of Gilneas in this tale for two reasons. Firstly, it's too extensive to cover within this narrative, and secondly, the events beyond the Greymane Wall, though relevant, extend beyond the scope of our current focus of Silverpine, and thus the full details won't be recounted in this tale. However, a brief summary and recollection of how the invasion affected the forest is still needed. The Gilneas invasion unfolded in several phases. First, the evacuation of the Gilnean residents, followed by the Alliance's response, and ultimately concluding with the Alliance's withdrawal from Silverpine Forest. Initially, the Forsaken launched an invasion into Gilneas, prompting many of its civilians to seek refuge in Darnassus. It's worth noting here that the Greymane Wall did not collapse due to pressure from the Forsaken, but rather from damage sustained from Deathwing's cataclysmic return. In the second phase, the Gilneas Liberation Front, the Bloodfang Pack, and the 7th Legion joined forces to combat the Forsaken and the Horde, and this is where the Silverpine Forest becomes more relevant again, as the fighting extended back out into the forest. While the majority of Gilneans sought refuge in Darnassus, the Gilneas Liberation Front, a sizable military organisation led by Lord Darius Crowley, remained to combat the Forsaken and reclaim their homeland. Operating not only in Gilneas but also in the Silverpine Forest, they achieved some minor victories despite being significantly outnumbered by the growing Forsaken forces. Employing guerrilla warfare and ambush tactics, the Liberation Front proved to be highly effective against their foes. As their operations expanded into Silverpine, Lord Crowley forged an alliance with the Bloodfang Pack, led by Ivor Bloodfang. Sylvanas learned of this alliance through her operatives in Silverpine. Led by Deathstalker commander Belmont, the Bloodfang Worgen conducted relentless ambushes, decimating Forsaken forces in the region. The Forsaken, recognizing the new threat and the need to address their unorthodox tactics, began to increase their numbers by targeting the Hillsbrad human refugees that had settled in the region. The Gnolls and Thule Ravenclaw had previously been driven out of Fenris Keep by the Worgen, leaving it vacant and eventually serving as a refuge for fleeing humans after the Forsaken devastated Hillsbrad foothills. The Forsaken travelled to Fenris Isle and started to eliminate these refugees with the intention of raising them as Forsaken using Sylvanas' new servants, the Valkyr. However, Lord Crowley and Ivor Bloodfang seized these attacks as an opportunity to persuade the humans of Fenris Isle to become Worgen. By offering them the chance to drink their Worgen blood, they would become Worgen and thus be immune to the Valkyr's necromantic magic, while also gaining the means to seek revenge on the Forsaken. This single act significantly bolstered the Worgen numbers. Although a large number of them were killed by artillery fire when attempting to assault Horde outposts by crossing Lordaeron Lake, it barely made a dent in the Worgen numbers. As the fighting in Silverpine persisted, the Forsaken received word that Lord Crowley and Bloodfang would be meeting in the abandoned Deep Ellum mine. Sylvanas seized the opportunity, sending her best warriors under the command of one of her elites, Master Fortescue, to trap and corner the Worgen leaders in the mine, which only had one entrance. However, the meeting turned out to be the trap. Instead of finding Crowley and Bloodfang, the Forsaken discovered the entire shaft of the mine rigged with explosives. An entire squadron of veteran Forsaken troopers, along with Fortescue, was slaughtered. Only one lone Horde agent survived the trap. Simultaneously, another large group of Forsaken veteran troopers and catapults had been crossing Ulsan's Farthing, only to be ambushed brutally by the Bloodfang Pack, leaving no survivors. King Gen Greymane, having arrived in Stormwind, appealed to Varian Rin for assistance to the Gilneas Liberation Front. With the Forsaken wreaking havoc in the north, the potential strategic importance of Gilneas for the Alliance, and empathising with the plight of their newfound allies, King Varian required little persuasion to lend his support. The king dispatched his elite soldiers, the 7th Legion, to ensure victory in Gilneas. With the arrival of the 7th Legion, the Forsaken were pushed back into the Silverpine Forest, and Gilneas finally found liberation. In response to these substantial Forsaken losses, Sylvanas Windrunner issued orders for a Horde agent to lead a crucial assault on Ambermill. Driven by the imperative of survival, the Kirin-Tor mages of Ambermill and Dalaran Crater, left behind to safeguard the land in anticipation of Dalaran's return, forged an agreement with the Alliance. This pact aimed to shield themselves from the relentless assaults of the Forsaken, who had been targeting the mages in recent years and continued to pose a threat in the present. They pledged to join forces with the Stormwind army when the opportune moment arrived to fend them off. In the interim, they employed a protective measure by phasing the entire population of Ambermill into a pocket dimension, ensuring their safety until the impending conflict. During their absence, the mages entrusted the maintenance of Ambermill to numerous elemental servitors. However, a Horde adventurer, aided by Dalar Dawnweaver, a former Archmage of the Kirintor, who had long been affiliated with the Forsaken of Undercity, utilised the Ambermill Codex to locate the portal to Ambermill's pocket dimension in Baron's Peril. Entering the portal with the Dalaran Archmage's signet ring, obtained after defeating Relios the Relic Keeper, the Horde adventurer restored the town to its original state by overwhelming the arcane powers of the Guardian of the Barrier. Subsequently, the Forsaken army, already positioned at the border in readiness for an attack, stormed Ambermill and massacred the Kirintor mages, while the Valkyr promptly reanimated them as new Forsaken. Following this modest triumph at Ambermill, Sylvanas issued orders for an assault on Pyrewood Village. This settlement had fallen under the control of a sizable contingent of 7th Legion troops, who had effectively neutralised most of the Forsaken forces stationed there. Despite this setback, the Forsaken swiftly reclaimed Pyrewood Village. After eliminating the remaining 7th Legion forces and rescuing any surviving Forsaken troops, the village was burned to the ground. Subsequently, the Forsaken redirected their efforts towards the 7th Legion base camp. Mirroring the composition of the Pyrewood forces, the base camp was predominantly manned by non-human 7th Legion members, primarily dwarves. The Forsaken group orchestrated the assassination of General Marston and plundered the 7th Legion battle plan, securing a significant advantage for the Horde forces. Regarding strategic advantages, the Forsaken obtained crucial intelligence revealing that the Gilneas Liberation Front base camp was under the command of none other than Lorna Crowley, the daughter of Lord Darius Crowley himself. Unlike most of the Gilnean forces, Lorna had not undergone the transformation into a Worgen, making her susceptible to being slain and raised as a Forsaken. With this knowledge in hand, the Forsaken group set out to capture Lorna, intending to leverage her as a bargaining tool to compel Darius Crowley to retreat before the Forsaken were overwhelmed by the forces of Stormwind. Sylvanas traversed the battlefront, a battleground teeming with both Horde and Alliance forces engaged in fierce combat in every corner. Arriving at the shattered gates of the Greymane Wall, Sylvanas convened with Darius Crowley and Ivor Bloodfang. There she presented Crowley with a stark ultimatum: either he surrendered and immediately withdrew his forces into Gilneas, or his daughter would meet her end and be raised as a Forsaken to serve the Banshee Queen eternally. Faced with the unthinkable fate awaiting his daughter, Crowley reluctantly agreed to retreat into Gilneas, prompting a negative reaction from Ivor, who branded him a coward before departing with a howl. Lorna was freed, and Crowley departed with his daughter. As the Alliance fled back into the safety of Gilneas, Sylvanas Windrunner proclaimed the Forsaken's victory and prepared her troops for an assault on Gilneas to eliminate the remaining Alliance forces. But it was here Godfrey committed an unthinkable act. He assassinated Sylvanas Windrunner. In the ensuing chaos, Horde members engaged in a brief duel with Godfrey and his two undead Gilnean comrades, Ashbury and Walden, before being overpowered and forced to retreat to Shadowfang Keep. Cromosh ordered the Valkyr to revive the fallen Banshee Queen, and the three Valkyr sacrificed themselves to bring her back. Consumed by fury at Godfrey's betrayal, Sylvanas vowed retribution for his treachery, and affirmed her conviction that the Valkyr were indeed the future of the Forsaken. With her resurrection, the Banshee Queen departed for the Undercity to recuperate, while the Bloodfang Pack and the Gilneas Liberation Front regrouped within Gilneas. Ultimately, in the following days, the Forsaken suffered significant losses, eventually relinquishing all major land bases and holdings in Gilneas to the overpowering Alliance forces. Nonetheless, the region remains a contentious battleground for both the Horde and the Alliance, as they vie for control over the Gilneas' valuable resources. Gilneas would remain in this empty, sorrowful, war-torn state for many years to come. Having betrayed both Gilneas and the Forsaken, Vincent Godfrey, Baron Ashbury and Lord Walden repurposed the abandoned keep as their stronghold against their former allies. The keep turned into a battleground where the Alliance and Horde contended for Godfrey's capture, each faction seeking to eliminate him and seize control of the fortress for themselves. Ivor Bloodfang and then Deathstalker Commander Belmont spearheaded these efforts on behalf of their respective factions. Rumours have it that the three met their demise within Shadowfang Keep at the hands of the Horde and Alliance adventurers. In the ensuing years, the focus on Azeroth's champions shifted away from Gilneas and the Silverpine Forest as the Alliance and Horde ventured to the unexplored lands of Pandaria. This left the forest relatively unchanged since the Gilnean invasion, up until the events of the Battle for Azeroth. Following the Battle for Lordaeron, Silverpine became a prime target for Alliance forces, prompting the remaining Forsaken to defend their dwindling strongholds. Under Deathstalker Haywood's command, the Forsaken claimed Fenris Keep, only to be later ousted by the Bloodfang pack, who seized control of the island. To aid Undercity refugees in crossing Lordaeron Lake, the Horde diverted attention from the Forsaken forces. Meanwhile, the Forsaken repurposed Shadowfang Keep into a bioweapon facility under Chief Plaguebringer Harris's direction, intending to arm themselves against the neighbouring Gilneas. In addition, clashes between the Alliance and the Horde erupted at the Deep Ellum mine, with the Horde striving to continue mining operations while the Alliance aimed to seize control and disrupt these efforts using gnomish explosives. Lord Darius Crowley led a Gilnean army out of the region to assault the nearby sludge fields in Hillsbrad foothills, thwarting attempts by Warden Stillwater to send undead reinforcements to assail Gilneas. During their expedition to explore Azeroth and document the locations of significant artifacts, Matthias Shaw and Flynn Fairwind ventured into the Silverpine Forest. Shaw identified Ivor Bloodfang as the primary contact in the region, mentioning that the pack leader served as his liaison within Shadowfang Keep. It seemed that the pack had taken control of the keep, as well as Fenris Isle had relocated many of the artifacts from Shadowfang to Fenris for safekeeping. Years later, during the rediscovery of the Dragon Isles, the Scarlet Crusade made an unexpected resurgence in the region, seizing control of Fenris Isle and Fenris Keep from the Bloodfang pack. This posed a significant threat to the Forsaken holdings in the area, including the ruins of Lordaeron, prompting the Desolate Council to mobilise their forces to eliminate this threat. Engaging in combat in fringe areas of the forest, such as Valgan's Field, they managed to infiltrate the island with the assistance of a Horde champion among their ranks. Once on the Isle, the hero conducted sabotage operations against Scarlet outposts, facilitating the invasion by Forsaken military forces. After driving the Crusade's leadership into retreat, the Forsaken besieged Fenris Keep, where Lillian Voss fought alongside the Horde hero against Scarlet Commander Forsyth. With the Crusade leader captured, the undead forces reclaimed the keep and the Isle. Following the battle, the Forsaken bestowed honours upon the hero, with Lillian Voss declaring that Fenris Keep had been reclaimed. However, the fate of the Bloodfang pack and the artifacts they safeguarded within the keep remained undisclosed. Over time, the Scarlet Crusade expanded its presence into the ruins of the Kingdom of Gilneas. Recently, Greymane initiated efforts to reclaim the lost city, prompting Azeroth's champions to intervene. They embarked on a mission to purge the city of the Scarlet Crusade and eradicate a vermin infestation within its tunnels. Their objective was to vanquish Inquisitor Fairbell and end the Scarlet dominance in the city. Ultimately, with the assistance of Azeroth's champions, Gilneas was reclaimed, and Greymane had recovered his lost city. The future of the city and its inhabitants remains uncertain, the unfolding of destiny yet to be written. And with that, our tale from the Silverpine Forest must draw to a close. As we come to the end of our journey through the forest, we're reminded of the many trials and tribulations this ancient woodland has endured over the centuries. From the sinister motives of Kathra'natir to the events of the Third War, and from the release of the Worgen to the reclamation of Gilneas and beyond, the forest has been a battleground for forces both dark and light. Through it all, the resilience of the forest and its inhabitants has shone brightly. From the valiant efforts of the Gilneans to the cunning strategies of the Forsaken, each faction has left its mark on the land, shaping its destiny in profound ways. But amidst its conflicts and struggles, there have been moments of heroism and friendship. Whether it's the brave adventurers who have dared to delve into the depths of the Shadowfang Keep, or the steadfast defenders who have held the line against the Scourge, the Spirit of Silverpine Forest is one of courage and determination. As we bid farewell to this land, let us carry with us the lessons learned from its history. Let us remember the strength that comes from unity, the resilience that comes from facing adversity, and the hope that springs eternal even in the darkest of times. Though our time in the Silverpine Forest may be at an end, its legacy will carry on, a testament to the enduring spirit of Azeroth itself.